Okay, here we are in 12.12. My name is Chris, and I am once again, as last time, joined by my friend Jason.
You know, when you said you'd have me back, I was very happy, but I didn't think it would be three patches in a row. Good to be here.
Yep, I'm glad you were still able to do this video with me when Johnny's out sick, I guess. And
Get better, Johnny.
just one thing I like to say, I'm still working on my first Warcraft 3 YouTube project. Same thing as last time. I won't go into too much detail about it, but just some history shit. Okay, let's get right into it. And our first thing up is Amumu. And one thing I like to say right away is now that his bandage toss is on a stock system like a few other abilities in the game, I feel like this change makes a lot of sense. And with his ultimate, this pretty much just brings it in line with similar stuff like Malphite's ultimate. So all in all, I'm pretty happy with this Amumu change.
Yeah, I'm fine with this as well. The changing it to a stock system really honestly changed his identity as a champion. If he misses that first bandage, he can still put some threat on you. And I'm fine with these buffs. I think he's pretty good. Do you think that his builds are going to change at all with the bandage toss, or is it just that he's going to run out of mana a lot less often when he's using his W?
Well, just like your Shyvanas of the world, there's always going to be those full AP Amumus, bomb Mumus or
Mhm.
whatever. You're always going to have those, and a buff to his ultimate is a buff to that build style. So,
Yeah.
but I think
Uh,
long gone are the days of like 100% AP ratio on his ultimate and the 90% AP ratio on his Q that both he had both of for a long, long time. Both of those have been nerfed a couple times a piece now.
right. The Curse of the Sad Mummy, the 50 damage is kind of just a small touch up, but the bandage toss being reduced in mana, I think will probably feel very good for Mumu players. And speaking of changes that should feel good, we've got Annie next.
Yeah, now I have to believe that she was one of the losers of the big durability update, so I don't really have much to say about this other than I'm perfectly fine with everything I'm seeing here. I think any buff to Tibbers' lingering effects is a good change.
Pretty much, I think a lot of these changes are part two of Riot's apology tour after they decided to just give every champ the same exact durability package in 1210. And Annie, like you said, is one of those champs that really relies on just being able to get past the threshold of 100 to zeroing somebody with all of her skills, with Ignite, maybe with something like the Rocket Belt. So even just this little touch up from 75% AP to 80% can make a difference. Also, Tibbers, this is something that you would have thought they would have maybe given him in the base durability package. We'll see another change like this with Ivern later. So it's just kind of following up thoughtfully on things they missed in 1210. I think
Yeah.
Annie's still going to need a little bit of help. What do you think?
Yeah, I would have been happy with a buff to Incinerate also, since it's on a much higher cooldown than this. And actually, what I would have really liked to see even more than this
Hmm.
is a reduction by 1 second on the cooldown of her Q, just so gives her more like 1v1 potential when her ultimate and her like surprise I gotcha rotations on cooldown. With how
Yeah, yeah,
easy
yeah.
it is to stack ability haste, dumping it down like 1 more second would really make her more of like a bit of a duelist, like kind of Vladimir Rise.
These burst mages are like, I have all the power, and they use their entire kit, and you have
Yeah,
100 health, and they're like, oh shit, what do I do now?
there's so many
What do I
other
do now? Run
ones.
away.
Yeah, there's so many other ones like Oriana or Cassiopeia that have like way better dueling kits. She is so hit or miss. Yeah.
Yeah, in a world where she can burst someone 100 to 0, she's pretty good. But this is not that world. I expect to see some further slight follow-up buffs in the future.
Yeah, to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if she was on a list somewhere over at Riot HQ to be reworked within like the next 3 years. And I'm talking about like a serious like from the ground up rework. I think
Well, I
she's
mean,
like Zillion. I bet Zillion's probably around there too.
anyone with only one passive is going to get reworked eventually.
Yeah, you got that right. And Zillion, he has one ability that does damage. That don't fly in 2022.
All right.
He's on a list somewhere, so enjoy it while you can. I know I
Speaking of
will.
passives, if you can on screen, like mouse over Belveth's Royal Maelstrom and not the Royal Maelstrom, the Endless Banquet, and see if you could fit that on your screen. That
Well,
is one ability.
I'm zoomed in, so this is easier to post on YouTube right now. But we'll start at the top, and
Okay. When we get there, try to fit it on your screen because it's hilarious.
well, I'm getting there. First thing that jumps at me right away is they just gave her Aurelia's attack range instead of her needing that from her ultimate. But to
Good call.
compensate, they made the attack range her ultimate gives her lower. This was actually, I don't know if I actually mentioned this when she came out and we did our last one, but I think I might have actually briefly mentioned that she should have way higher attack range as a melee champion than she did, and someone was paying attention to this because this is a really good change for the way she kind of functions.
I believe there is one skill that does give her the higher attack range, right?
Yeah, when she consumes one of the coral things, she gets. But
That's
now,
when she consumes the Void Coral.
yeah, she only gets a little bit now instead of getting a bunch because they buffed it permanently now.
Right. So this is just something that feels good and is going to make her easier to control.
She's just gonna land a lot of auto attacks on you, where most like uninitiated people are gonna be like, what the fuck? Like Aurelia. Aurelia is the only melee champion in the game that has the same auto attack range that she does now.
Bringing out the facts. I did not know that.
Okay. Next up, she gets a stack from killing lane minions now. Now, your first instinct is that this was a buff to make her like go top or something like that. I'm actually not so convinced. I think this is actually so she while she's ganking and the cannon minion happens to be up, that she can get kind of like a pseudo lane tax, and if she hits it once, she'll get the takedown on the cannon minion of her laner and still get a stack for helping in the gank if the cannon minion happens to be around. I'm actually think that was the point of this. I really don't agree with them nerfing the potency of the stacks because I think she already takes a long time to get going. And as I explained in our little huge in-depth diagnosis of her kit, her ultimate I thought was the only thing that seemed really strong. Overall, I thought she felt pretty balanced.
Um, yeah, I've had kind of a feast or famine experience with having her on my team or on the other team on the Rift. I haven't played her yet. But there are some games she's been getting fed and getting extremely powerful. There have been some games she's been pretty weak up until, 30, 35 minutes, and only then does she really come into her power. So
Yeah.
it's pretty feast or famine, and maybe they just wanted to make sure she didn't scale too out of control. On the point to um the lavender stacks for takedowns on large minions, I agree with you completely. I think that's why they did it. And she doesn't even need to tax. She can just help you push, and then you can finish off the minion, and she'll get the stack since it's considered a takedown on the large minion.
Mm-hmm.
You don't, as the Belveth player, you don't actually need to finish off the large minion to get this stack.
Yeah, that was my point.
Yeah. So it's kind of a nice touch for the ex-smithies out there.
Okay, next up, her. Is that her W? No, it's her E. Okay, yeah, you knew she wasn't gonna keep all that lifesteal. Get the hell out of here.
Yeah, I think
It'll probably get nerfed at least one more time. There's no
I
way.
believe last patch they reduced the damage reduction as well, didn't they?
This is the first patch since she was reworked, unless she got a hot fix. I
Hmm.
mean, not
Okay.
reworked. I mean, released.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't really
Maybe
have
I've
a
seen
problem
a
with
patch
this.
preview of this.
With the way her E functions, a tiny nerf like this to its base amount isn't really going to do anything. So I don't really have much to say on this.
It's still a lot better than Master Yi's W. Yeah, I like the. I actually liked the way that Royal Maelstrom worked in practice more than I thought I would. Looking at the 1210 patch, it actually plays pretty well. I think is actually somewhat healthy. And I agree with you. I think if you're gonna give her a slight nerf, that this is a good place to do it.
I don't think this needed a nerf, to be honest. But
It didn't
I'm
need
just
one.
totally unsurprised by the nerf, though.
I'd much rather they nerf something like this than her movement, for example.
Okay, and now we'll go down to her ultimate, and this was the one thing I mentioned about 17 or 20 times when we were talking about it, that she had an Garen and Nunu's ultimate on true damage that's way faster. And someone came to their senses over there at Riot HQ. It had to be the guy with 2 synapses firing, because now we have, yeah, it's basically just level 1 Garen's ultimate the whole game. It's still really fucking strong, make no mistake about that.
One of the things that my friends have all complained about the most, I have heard so many complaints about the Void Remoras and how hard they are to kill. I never found them that annoying, but it looks like they decided to do something about that here as well.
Well, to be honest, that was like the most phoned in part of her entire kit, I thought.
Yeah, I would like for them to maybe do something where they're even a little bit easier to kill, but present more reward if you can get them to the turret. Because right now it just seems like an extra little annoyance to bring to the enemy team. I'd really like to see some type of reward for escorting them all the way to the turret. Right now it just doesn't seem like you get that much. Maybe with Baron minions as well, you do.
How much of like a hyper carry she's supposed to be? I don't see them changing that mechanic anytime soon.
That's fine. I'd also be fine if they just got rid of it.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they did get rid of it. It would.
Yeah, I don't think anyone would complain. Do you know anyone out there who would complain if they just got rid of the suckerfish?
Well, I'm sure there's already like 500 Bel'Veth mains out there. Now that she's been out for a whole like 2 days or something.
Thank God she's not the type of champion that can be brought top lane and you just take Hullbreaker and you just have the Void Remoras whack the turret the entire game.
I'm sure there's people doing that right now. I think she could be a bang
Please,
up.
no.
I think she could be
Please,
a bang up top laner probably. It would suck because she wouldn't be able to get enough stacks of her passive. But I think she could do it. Her kit is not completely non-conducive to playing top lane. So
yeah, I just don't think it would be in the Hullbreaker style. Do you? I don't think so.
I think anyone that can utilize attack damage can build it and forget it, you know?
Interesting. I hope we never see that.
And Hullbreaker's still in a really powerful state right now for melee characters, and she's still melee, so...
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Alright, should we move on?
Next up is Blitzcrank, and I'm really happy to see these changes now. You might disagree with me, Jason, on this, but I kind of think that Blitzcrank has to do like 99% of his work in the laning phase, and obviously while grabs are super powerful, obviously in the mid and late game, I think he is just way too grab dependent to make a difference, and his peel is too bad, his team fighting is way too bad, so I'm really happy to see these big buff to like his laning phase, which this clearly is.
Yeah, as much as I want to disagree with you, I agree with you completely on this. I was actually thinking the same thing. Blitzcrank needs to get his ADC ahead, because if he makes a grab late game, and he has no one else that's behind him that's pretty fed to actually follow up on that grab, it's not going to do a lot. And Blitzcrank, like Annie, I think is one of those champions, probably one of the top 10 champions in the game, that is reliant, sometimes with the help of the mid laner, the ADC, anyone else, but is very reliant on getting that 100 to 0 and being able to spike someone down. If he can't threaten to kill you and at least force both of your sums by hitting a grab at level 2 or 3, what's he really going to be able to do? And with the durability update, he was in a weak spot. So as much as I think Blitzcrank is one of the champions that really needs to be reworked, and maybe when we talk about him some other time, I'll go through some of my ideas for that.
Was that a hint to our potential new League of Legends YouTube series?
It might be. It might be. This is a champ that I think we could definitely talk about. some theory crafting on how you might make a Blitzcrank play better.
I think I could come up with some cool rework ideas without him
For
losing the
sure,
grab.
man.
Without him losing the grab, honestly.
Oh, I think you got to, yeah. I definitely would not take away the grab.
I want
I
him
think you
to.
just need to take some of the damage out of it.
I want
But
him to be more
anyway,
of
let's
that
talk about
like.
that.
I want him to be more of
Go on.
that like mana golem, mana robot like theme he's supposed to be.
Interesting. I think we may actually end up coming from two totally different places, end up with some similar ideas on what Blitzcrank needs. Anyhow, getting back to patch 12.10, this is definitely nice to see for Blitzcrank players because he is very reliant on getting over that threshold. And like Annie, I actually think he's going to need a little bit more going forward.
Yeah, maybe. I wouldn't mind seeing an extra effect on his power fist. Like, if it was just like slightly lower cooldown, maybe he could do something a little bit extra if he like hit someone with a second power fist
We'll talk
within
about it
like
some other
succession.
time, Chrissy.
All right. Let's go on to Doctor Mundo, and maybe we should just skip him like Riot's skipping him right now. What do you think? This breaks my heart. This was one of my favorite blind picks when he was like at the peak of his power right before he got reworked, where his ultimate healed him for like 120% of his max health at like 16 or whatever. That was peak Mundo. The way Mundo now is fucking garbage. He does not go where he pleases. He is not dosing up enough with maximum dosage, man.
I mean, if he pleases going to the fountain, he certainly goes there.
That's where,
Mundo
yeah.
now reminds me a little bit of Old Singed, actually, where he can do a pretty good amount of damage. He can get in your face, but he can't really control the pace of a fight.
Old Singed?
Old Singed,
How
where
is that different
basically,
than New Singed?
well, New Singed, I think can control the pace of the fight more. He has the hard CC if he flings someone into the stickiness. He does a little bit more damage than Old Singed did, and he's less tanky than Old Singed. He's a little bit more disruptive now. Whereas Old Singe kind of got in your face, did damage, survived the whole fight, but couldn't do that much beyond that. I feel like Dr. Mundo's in that state now, and it's not a terrible state to be in per se, but it means that you can't control the pace of the fight or the quality of the fight as much as a lot of the other tanks in the game. The Orns, for example, the Poppies. So I think that's really Dr. Mundo's problem. And with that said, I think it's a little bit sad to see them nerfing him. I don't think he needed this, and it sounds like you don't think he needed it either.
I think as soon as he was reworked, he was way worse than what he was. Now they've just kept nerfing him after his rework. So now I just think like everyone is just a few extra nails in the coffin. It's just terrible. His passive is officially like weaker now than it was like 12 years ago. You know, it's just like it's terrible.
It's sad to see, but he still has those great doctor jokes.
Uh, I guess that's good. They just
I think that's a part of his kit.
they try too hard to add damage to his kit when he was about being like a giant sponge, who still did a decent amount of damage because the cleavers do max health damage or a big chunk of current health damage or something like that. And yeah, he lost his identity. They pushed him into too much of like a bruiser now.
Yeah,
And
that's not a terrible way to say it.
he's
It's
not good at
damage,
that.
it's tankiness, but it's not like that fight disrupting tank that you kind of hope to have on your team. Still better than getting a top lane Quinn though.
Yeah, I don't really care for those 80 carries going top.
Yeah, give me a Dr. Mundo any day over that.
Yeah, I would still take shitbag Mundo over Quintop. Okay, next up is Fiora, and pretty sure this is actually a revert of a buff she got several months ago that was exactly this strong, like about a year ago or 5-6 months ago or something.
It was exactly 4.5.
I think so, yeah. Or it was either this was a direct nerf or the base amount was like 2.5 instead of 3 or something like that. Whatever, it was just a revert to an old buff she got, and it probably was a little too strong, I imagine. And
Yeah, really, since the durability update in particular. She has been dominating the Rift in my experience. She has
That makes
hard
sense.
carried a couple games where every other player on the team, even me, were just feeding our asses off. And Fiora's like, "Don't worry, I got this." And the
Yeah.
11-2 Fiora comes into lane and cleans up the 4 people we couldn't manage to kill.
Yeah. That makes sense that she would thrive in this environment. I think she's one of the most powerful champions in the late game, in my opinion.
Absolutely. She's really good right now, and I think this was a good way to cut her damage a little bit.
I actually would
And
go
I think
one
she's going
step.
to continue to be good.
I would go one step further. I think she's the best split pusher in the game.
Wow.
I don't think
Even
there's
over like an Inting Scion?
there's no champion that can match like the damage that she accrues as the game goes on because of how much max health true damage she does. Even
Hmm.
insane split pushers like Nasus or Yorick, her combo is just too fast to interact with. It's and those are like the amongst the better ones are like Nasus and Yorick and stuff.
Some pretty high praise from Chris right there.
Well, as
I
an
would have
amateur
probably put her.
Fiora player myself, I'm telling you, yeah, she's a terror in the late game.
I would have probably put her a little bit below Nasus and Inting Scion on the split push front, but she is certainly a terror in the late game.
Okay, let's move on to the Donger. I'm always happy to see any and all buffs to Heimerdinger, so anything, I'm happy.
Ooh.
I mean, you
I was
want?
honestly a little bit well, go ahead. Sorry, were you saying something else?
Do you think he should be played less or something?
I just hate every time I see him in a game. He's such a
Or
non-interactive
oh, you
champion.
just don't like his playstyle?
Right.
You see, what I would like, I agree with you. The dingers that go top, I don't like that. I like it when Heimerdingers go mid. I think that's where he's supposed to go, kind of. I don't like the dinger interaction top's pretty dry. But I still want to see him. I think time has slowly been good to him. He did get that like soft rework like 4 years ago or 5 years ago, whatever, that put him almost on the map. And I'm definitely happy with any changes to Heimerdinger. You know what I'd really like to see is some way for his ultimate to come off a cooldown faster. Not as crazy as Karma's, but something like that.
I could get on board with that as long as he's not using it on his turret. Like the other uses of his ultimate are interesting and fun, but simply putting down the large turret, that thing sucks.
I think that's his worst one.
Probably for a good player it is, but there are a lot of lower players that just put that down and end up getting a lot of kills they don't deserve.
Yeah, I think that
Heimer's.
thing sucks. It just doesn't last long enough.
Mm,
It only shoots like
We'll have to
four or
agree to
five
disagree
times.
on that. Heimerdinger's kind of weakest point is really before he can get the Zanyas and protect himself. That's really the one place where you can take advantage of him. And with the durability update, I felt like he was in a better spot than he was before. So I was a little surprised to see him get buffed, but I think it was just the fact that he hasn't been played much. Probably hasn't had that much success before or after that patch. And what can I say? Like which part of this do you think is the bigger buff? Probably the turret?
Uh, the turrets were always squishy, so I'm gonna say the grenade.
Particularly the health.
I'm gonna say the
Yeah.
grenade buff.
You think the grenade buff's the bigger buff here?
His whole kill potential is landing the stun, so all of the turrets fill their laser charge instantly and shoot all the lasers. So yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
think the grenade is more important.
An interesting take. I like it.
Says landing the stun instantly readies the laser charge on all nearby turrets.
Right. And then they fire like crazy on you.
Yeah.
All right. Maybe it was just that he couldn't roam that much, and the meta's been favoring roaming a little bit. Maybe that's why he's kind of needed this buff. That's the only thing I can think of. Besides that, I got nothing really to say about the guy.
Yeah, I've said all I wanted to.
All right.
All right. Let's move on to Ivern, one of the bizarre champions in the game. Now, I gotta admit, when this champion first came out and the treatment he got, I gotta be honest, I was a little bizarre to me because I thought when this champion first came out, the whole point of him is that he doesn't have to fight the monster camps, so he doesn't have to interact with them. That's like his whole theme and stuff. But then they made it for him to consume the camps. He basically loses just as much life as if he would have fought them like a conventional jungler. So I'm really fucking lost because it seemed really stupid to me. And then
What the rioters said about that is that they wanted to make a jungler that would be able to have jungle rhythms and be unique, but also they wanted to make a jungler for people who didn't really want to bother with the micro of camps. So it's almost like you're kind of just doing a time skip, saying flash forward, I've lost the health, I've lost the mana, the camp's gone. That's what they said they wanted to do.
Oh. Okay, I guess they made the lazy man's jungler then.
I think so. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but that was the intention.
Alright, well, similar to Ivern, or Heimerdinger, I'm definitely happy with any Ivern buffs. To be honest, I would be more happy to see him pushed completely into support than I would to see him linger in the jungle.
I certainly wouldn't mind seeing some more support Ivern, especially with the way that he can grate the bushes. It would be great if they could do more with that. The Trigger Seed in particular is a straight revert to the shield reduction that they did in 12:10 to everyone. I remember you were complaining about that a little bit, so I'm sure you're happy to see that completely reverted.
Yeah, it's a strong ability.
And really, if you think about it, the Friend of the Forest buff, where it's taking less health and mana to do the camps, and the Daisy buff, where it's getting more health and resistances, are kind of in line with the changes they made in 12:10. That is, he's giving away about the same amount of health overall as he was before 12:10, because he has more health, and he's giving away a smaller percentage now. And Daisy is getting more health and resistances just like the rest of the champs in the game. So, really, this is, I think, kind of just an apology for forgetting to do some of the stuff that they should have done in 12:10.
Big surprise.
Hey, I'm all for the apology tour, you know? Bring it in the right direction.
Alright, so let's move on to Janna, and I gotta be honest, every time I see a Janna nerf, which is about like 30 times a year, I always scratch my head, because personally I think she's one of the most like balanced champions in the game. And yeah, I hate seeing she's one of my favorite supports. I hate seeing this champion continually be eroded further and further until she's more reminiscent of dog shit than what she was like 4 years ago.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I'm going to correct you. You said she's one of the most balanced champions in the game. I think she was one of the most balanced champions in the game. Before they nerfed her like 16 times. I'm kind of scratching my head too.
I thought you were going to tell me she was overpowered.
So we have bonus movement speed reduced even more, the slow on the Zephyr reduced, and less shielding. I don't see any reason to play this champion when you have champions like Sona and Lulu as enchanters in the game. Karma even.
Yeah, I think all the other mainline supports shield for more than like 200 when their thing's maxed out.
It's fun to watch a good Janna, but you know, in the state she's in now, there's even a good Janna isn't really going to be able to do much for your team. Base shield of 175, AP ratio of a mere 55% AP. That's, I think, less than, I forget, maybe they changed it in 12:10, but I think that's less than the AP ratio even on a Soraka W.
Yeah, and they nerfed her.
I think they did change it to be lower, right?
They nerfed her ultimate in that too.
Yeah, they did. This is just sad.
Can you believe once upon a time, her shield used to be 90% AP? I ain't kidding.
I remember that. It was why you built her AP all the time.
Yeah, I'm honestly shocked they didn't hit the
skip the damn Sightstone, Chrissy.
I'm surprised they didn't hit the bonus AD she gets from putting points into this. That's a mere 10%, but 10% on that is actually strong.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of one of the most interesting parts of her shield, right? The fact that she can give that to an ally and give them some bonus AD.
Yeah, they're coming for it someday.
Maybe they'll just reduce the base shield to 5 at level 1.
Yeah. 5, but it
Yeah,
has to fit 5, but it has to decay faster.
yeah, it's sad to see. I hope they give her some buffs soon.
Yeah, this really breaks my heart. She's one of my most played supports over like the course of playing this game.
Play
Oh,
some more Lulu.
okay, next up is Jarvan, and it's just straight love for Jarvan, and I think he deserves it because he is one of those people who falls off in the late game unless you're building him like Talon, which I wouldn't put it past a lot of people. I do think that is fairly popular.
Even then, he falls off pretty badly because he gets in, he does a lot of damage, and if you have the right people there, you can survive and just blow him up. They were really trying to target buff the tank Jarvan, I think, based on the fact that they buffed his passive, which is that is his passive, right? Martial Cadence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish they would change this to max health instead of current health. I think it'd be better for him.
Yeah, that would definitely be better. But the fact that it's a straight percentage of the opponent's health, kind of regardless of his own stats, means that this reduced cooldown will definitely be helping the tank builds the most. They'll be able to get the martial cadence off more times.
Yeah,
So that's nice for the tank Jarvans, I think, and I think that's probably the most useful way to play him personally.
me too.
The mana growth is nice because there's so many times I've seen a Jarvan out of mana, like trying to help his ally, and he just kind of like throws a flag and sadly walks away.
Yeah, that, and if you want a mana item, if you don't build Frozen Heart, you have to build one of the AP mythics, because that's how poorly the items are in terms of mana to pick from.
Right, so 15 more mana growth per level. Even in the mid game, that's 100 extra mana, an extra skill you can use. It's pretty nice.
Alright, let's move on to Katarina, and this looks like a shitload of nonsense, but I did carefully read this just to make sense of it. And what I took away from this is they want to give her more scaling with attack speed and less scaling with bonus AD. And this is all basically in response to her on-hit builds where she just builds a lot of goofy nonsense that isn't as powerful as full AP.
Yeah, I don't know that I would agree that it's less with bonus AD. Sure, the Shun Po is less, but if you're Shun Po into a dagger, because of that Voracity buff, bonus AD ratio changed from 60 to 75. If you're Shun Po into a dagger, or if you're just getting the daggers down during a fight, you're doing a lot of bonus AD damage right around you.
They nerfed that too.
Sorry?
They nerfed that too.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I had read that wrong when I did the prep for this.
That used to be 100 like 2 years ago.
They reduced it from 75 to 60. I'm sorry. I thought it was the other way around. So yeah, that's actually some pretty serious AD ratio nerfs. And they're definitely trying to push her towards on-hit. Obviously, she can still build the AP type builds. Things like Riftmaker. Yeah. Yeah, sorry, I wasn't really prepared for this one because I thought that the Voracity and the Shun Po were kind of offsetting nerfs here. So you think that they're really trying to push her towards these goofy on-hit builds?
Well, the only serious
Attack
buff
speed.
in this change is the on-hit modifier increased by 3%.
Yeah, and that is significant. At 38%, you're doing, I think, basically 6 full on-hits for whatever your on-hit items are throughout the duration of your Death Lotus. Even at 33%, you're doing 5 full on-hits. So even at 3%, it's pretty nice. I agree with you. Take it away if you had anything else more that you want to say, because I think you understand this one better than I do.
Well, I used to be a serious Katarina player during her first 2 iterations, and then I just could not get on board with her second rework. I just did not like the whole bouncing dagger mechanic. I liked the first 2 better because I guess I was brain dead and they were simple. And I was good at it then. But I didn't ever like this new shit, and I know what her numbers looked like even 2 years ago. She has been nerfed like a million times. Her Voracity had like 100% AP ratio and 100% bonus AD ratio not that long ago, and they have both slid off the side of a cliff the last 2 years.
Yeah, really just the prevalence, or not the prevalence, but the power that certain type of on-hit builds have been able to bring in the last year or two, I think have forced them to keep nerfing her. And it's a little bit sad to see, because I think she used to be in a more balanced place when she could just build kind of traditional AP.
Yeah, I still think that's her most powerful build.
Even more than the on-hit is.
Way more.
Okay.
The scaling just isn't there for this on-hit stuff. And it's like terrible against like tanks.
Well, between
Okay.
attack speed, go. Yeah, let's just move on. That's fine.
Next up is Lucian, and I mention this a lot with some champions. There's some abilities that have been bounced up and down like 25 times. When I think of that, I think of like Lee Sin. But this is definitely one of those champs also. His Q has been played with a million times. That's why it's one of the few abilities in the game where if I mouse over this, you see that not only does the base amount fluctuate, but the ratio also changes with the levels as well. Now, what that tells you is this was an ability that was really difficult for them to balance. You only see this in a few champions, like Rengar is one of them, another champ that had a hard time balancing, and a few other champions. It's not often they have a scaling AD ratio. I think Sion's Q also is the same.
Right. What do you mean by a scaling AD ratio?
Where when you put points into the ability, the ratio goes up along with the base damage.
As you level the ability, yes.
Yeah, almost every ability in the game doesn't work like that.
Yeah, that can be hard to do. I've actually seen them doing it a little bit more recently in some of the really this season particularly. I think they've added several of those to the game. Basically where they want to quantify that a champion's power needs to come later and not just from their items, but also needs to come from the flow of the game. It is kind of a weird quadratic curve, basically exponentially as you're putting leveled points into the ability and gaining more AD. You end up with a weird, like, hyperbolic scaling, and that's why we've seen sometimes where Lucian has gotten out of control. I've seen him mid a bunch recently, and I think maybe this is what they were trying to tone down a little bit.
Well, I got nothing to add after you use the word quadratic. Okay, who's next here? What was that first bug you wanted to talk about? Is that Silas?
It was Silas. Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to Seraphine. And as someone who's recently picked her up, I'm really happy with this change. This is kind of her least impactful ability. And well, actually, I think all of her abilities are really good. I think she's just like reworked Sona, but they cared, in my opinion. I just really like. She has a really good skill set.
W is probably the least impactful.
Yeah, I'm really happy with this change.
Yeah, this is pretty nice. I like Seraphine as an aggressive support, as a supportive mid laner, and this really helps both of them. Less cooldown on her main damage, and better disable duration. Both really nice.
Yeah. When you layer this with her ultimate, it's pretty crazy too when you get the double beat drop. Because that basically charms everyone for like 2.5 seconds. And then you also, if they're already hard CC, this ability is also hard CC instead of a slow.
I never knew the slow is 99% actually. That's pretty crazy. Now,
Yeah.
obviously, whenever you're slowed by 99%, you're set to the absolute minimum in the game, which I believe is 110 units per second. So about a third to a quarter of your normal speed.
Suffice to say, it's slow.
Yeah. Even if you're supposed to be moving really fast at a moment, you're going to be moving at that 110 and quite slowly. But yeah, I think Nasus's may scale to 99 at level 5. I never knew that Seraphine's was one that did.
I think Trundle's Q also slows you by 99% too.
Really?
It's like
Wow.
only for half a second, but I think it does.
That's funny.
Okay,
Yeah.
next up is Shaco, and I'm always terrified of any change where they buff his AP ratios because I don't want to see none of that shit in my games. And they were doing a good job of consistently nerfing these AP ratios every now and again, and I'm really sad to see they slipped in some buffs here. Now, of course, the important buffs are the changes to his AD ratios, especially Deceive, I think. But yeah, I ain't. You got to keep that AP ratio out of my game, dog. That's no good, man.
Yeah, my take is that the AD probably gets as much or more benefit than the AP build does from this entire set of changes, particularly for the Jack in the Box. The AP is only increased if you're hitting multiple targets, and a lot of time with the Jack in the Box, you only want to hit one target anyway, because the ratio on that is 18%. So that's a lot better than 9 or 12. Um,
No, I want the
they,
AP to be bad to stop people from like wasting my time.
I agree with you. I'm just saying that I don't think that the AP builds are going to be any more popular as a result of these changes,
Oh, I
because I
don't
think the
know.
AD got.
These AP Shacos, they're a stubborn bunch. I think they'll. It won't matter how low these ratios get; they'll still be like building Leandries and shit. Oof.
His health and armor growth were reduced by a trivial amount, really not enough to matter. But if they keep taking Shaco in this direction, where they make him a little bit easier to kill if you catch him, but they make sure to give him enough damage that if he catches you, he can kill you, I think that's a good direction for Shaco. Most of my friends actually, I have probably 5 or 6 different friends that permaban Shaco every single game. So I don't get to see him that much, but
You're
I personally enjoy him when he's in my games.
you're the better for it.
I think he's a fun champ.
If I had like when I duo with a friend of mine, if we both had a second ban, we'd be banning this champion. But we always ban Master Yi and Vayne instead.
Master Union fan.
Yeah.
Mine lately has been Senna. I think before that it was usually one of the Trashua brothers. But I don't know. I personally like seeing Shaco in the game. I think it's fun to get taken to Clown Town.
Uh-huh. Okay, let's move on. Next up is Singed, the new Singed. And yeah, I'm not sure whether Singe is like just right. He's too strong in the late game, too annoying. Because you got to be really careful with Singe, because like inting Scion and Trendemir's nonsense, it's not really. No one wants to play against this, and the people that play this are scum most of the time. So you got to be really careful with these kind of changes. I wouldn't exactly call it like, conducive to the health of the game. This champion's play style. So I think he's probably just right now, to be honest, because his Q's been buffed several times too.
I say, speak for yourself. I have nothing but love for the Singed mains out there. Although I did have one asshole who got support and said, "I'm going ADC Singed," and basically took the game hostage. And we ended up winning that. He actually did pretty good. But it was kind of despite my best efforts to sink him, quite honestly. As far as these changes, yeah, this is power neutral. It's making him a little bit less powerful, kind of at that level 6 to 9 power spike, and it's making a little bit more powerful late game. And I think this is going to even out his power curve a little bit better because I personally think he's the most powerful, kind of at that near mid game power spike. And probably the weakest right near the end of the game, where there's always going to be 3, 4, 5 people there to actually lock him down and burst him when he tries to do something. I like this. This is just a slight evening of his power curve, and it's pretty power neutral overall. What do you think?
I do think that he's not good in the early game, but as far as the late game is concerned, I think it really kind of depends on the champions you have at your disposal. But I would say more times than not, I think in the late game he is kind of a bit hard to deal with, similar to how Mundo was before he was reworked. I used to call them both sponges. I had another friend who came up with that a long time ago. He told me that they weren't a tank, they were a sponge. And that kind of stuck in my mind.
Yeah, being able to distract and annoy your opponents is definitely part of Singe's kit. So it sounds like we're actually in a little bit of disagreement, though. You think that he's the strongest in the late game. I think he's strongest in that early part of the mid game
I
power spec.
I think when he gets ahead, he can be leveraged very hard in the mid game.
He can.
Yeah, but I do think he's really good in the late game too, though. It also depends on how he's built, though. Some people will go really AP heavy. Some people will only get Demonic Embrace or Leandries and then go full tank or something.
Right. And so now he's going to be even a little bit more of a terror in the late game if he can do well and get there.
Okay, now what was up with Silas?
I just thought this was so funny because I know that you're not much of a lore guy, Chris, but for everyone who
Oh, I
did,
actually know the lore between these two.
yeah, for everyone who did see and I guess for you too, then the lore between Silas and Lux. Spoiler alert if you're going to read the comic. He basically destroyed half of Demacia by stealing Lux's ult in his backstory.
Oh, I didn't know he did that.
Yeah.
I just know she
And-
like felt bad for his ass because he was in jail and they persecute like wizards and shit or something.
Yeah, he basically tricked her into kind of freeing him, and then stole her ult, and pretty much final sparked Demacia.
You can't
I'll
teach
put
those
it that
blonde
way.
chicks a damn thing.
I'm not going there. I'm not going there. But I'm sure it was just such a frustration for Silas mains that were running low on mana that they could not live out that dream.
Knowing
And now
Riot,
Silas mains, now you can live out that dream.
knowing Riot,
Believe.
I wouldn't be surprised if they purposely made this bug just so they
Mhm.
could fix it and call it a bug fix, just so some goofy 20-year-old retard that writes these patch notes could make some goofy comment in the patch notes on the client.
That sounds like hearsay to me.
I feel like stuff like that's not too not beneath them.
That's one of the few things I would put past them.
You don't think they
So,
would do something like that?
congratulations, Silas Mains. Live your dream of stealing Lux's ult with no mana, and final sparking half of Demacia. Go for it, guys. That's all I gotta say.
Okay, next up is Soraka, and this really is kind of a preference, whether you'd have the Grievous Wounds or whether you'd have her older ultimate that was still weak, but not as weak as they made it. You know?
Yeah, this was an interesting one, and I'm having a really hard time figuring out whether it's a buff or a nerf. I landed on this being a slight nerf. I think particularly most of the time, by the time she's level 3, somebody's gonna have grievous wounds at 40%, and the person that you're healing is going to take 40% less of 350, which will reduce it to about 210, I believe. Meaning that you're doing 60 less healing with the base heal, as well as whatever AP ratio you have is also being affected by the grievous wounds. I do think this is a little bit of a nerf.
You know what
And I
my
thought
take
Sirach
on
was in it. Go on.
my take on it is they should have buffed the heal and left the Grievous Wounds cleanse thing on.
Yeah. Yeah, they should have. Yeah, she's not in a great place right now. I don't think that they needed to have her lose the grievous wounds removal. I know that grievous wounds has been nerfed a couple times, and you want those users to feel good about using it. But if you're gonna do that, give her more buffs on the heals. Give her some of her W back, for goodness sakes.
See, I feel like
Um,
when she had this Grievous Wounds thing, a really
Mhm.
industrial Soraka could plan like their W redemption to happen like right after they ulted. Stuff like that.
That's really hard because you can apply grievous wounds right after it's removed.
Yeah.
And, if it's something like a brand or someone else with a DOT, it'll just apply the grievous wounds with every single frickin' tick.
Well,
So that's really hard to do. But if you were able to do that in your time as Soraka, more power to you.
Okay.
So we're in agreement. Are we in agreement? This is an overall nerf
Of
to
course.
Soraka.
Of course
Yeah.
it's a nerf. Okay. Next up is Viego. And I'm not exactly sure where I sit with this champion. I don't really. Doesn't really seem necessary that he even needs to heal to consume someone's ghost or whatever. But I definitely don't think I agree with nerf to his ultimate. He really needs that to like finish people and stuff to like actually trigger his passive a bunch of times. But considering that it refreshes after like every person he like consumes, it's not really the worst thing in the world, I guess. But definitely some nerves here.
Yeah, and the thing about Viego, and particularly with the slightly slower pace of fights that they wanted to make, is that Viego, to be effective in a fight, he needs to get in, do some damage, and then he can get out for a few seconds, basically let the rest of his team do the heavy lifting for him while he's injured, and then at the end of the fight, come back in with all this healing that he's getting from the possession of the ghosts. That's the Sovereign's domination. From the health ratio on his ult, just from all the healing that's inherent in his kit and the items that he builds. And basically, once everybody else's cooldowns have been exhausted, 1v4 with all these new abilities that he's possessing from people, as well as the reset on his ult. So he needs to get in, get out, and then basically, as long as he can get out and the rest of his team can get one, really just one kill for him that he can possess a ghost, he can go crazy. So you have to be very careful with
Uh,
designing a champion like Viego and balancing him.
I don't think
And
that's
that's why,
I'm
go
sorry.
on.
I don't think
It's
that's
fine.
necessarily true. He's not super powerful just because he manages to get one ghost. Because when he possesses someone's ghost or whatever, he's only
Hmm.
as strong as that champion was. He doesn't benefit from his own stats or items or masteries or any scaling other than the passive damage on his Q. He only
Hmm.
has their current like level of snowballiness. So I don't think
That is
it's not a
Mhm.
foregone conclusion that he's like a powerhouse just because he got one person.
That's certainly true, but he does get the abilities. I think it's not like the fact that he used his own W, like the Viego W, or Q or E or whatever, is not going to make him unable to use the new champion's QWE. So he basically gets a lot more abilities in the fight. And when everybody else has run out of their abilities between the possessions and the resets of his ult, yeah, I mean, I think that's how he really 1v4s in the late part of some of these fights. And that's why I think they have to be careful with how much healing they're giving him, and I actually like these changes for that reason.
You know, when this champion first came out, and this still works, I wasn't the way his ultimate was worded
Hmm.
on like the tool thingy. I messed around in the practice tool to see if this was the case. This is still is the case. What I'm about to explain. If now it's super normal that he like finishes you with his ultimate because not only is it like an execute, but it's a dash,
Right.
and then he immediately possesses you. But I think a lot of people don't realize this is even sillier. If he just kills you without ulting, he can ult for ult once for having the ghost, and then he can immediately ult a second time.
Ult
Just
is the dash, get the ghost, and then ult again.
no. He can just ult twice while he's a ghost because he didn't
Oh,
use his ult before he got his first ghost. He can just ult
is that a
twice in a
bug
row.
then? That's not supposed to be on a charge system. Is that a bug?
No, it's not a bug.
Huh.
He gets a free charge for like possessing someone. He doesn't ever
Right.
get more than two.
Okay.
And just if he didn't use his base ultimate when he's in his regular form, he can just immediately ult a second time. Just try it in the practice tools sometimes. It's kind of silly because it doesn't make sense why he should be able to do that, but he can still do that.
Kind of nifty. I bet you could pull out some cool moves like that.
Okay, next up is Yorick here, and maybe this is the same kind of shit we were talking about with Tibbers and Daisy, right? Think so?
Exactly.
I really don't think Yorick kind of needed the same treatment though, because his are definitely. I think he's a little more potent than those two things.
Yeah, York's in a very weird place. Where basically he's pretty strong, but if he gets behind, or you don't have a team comp that can work around him, he ends up being really useless.
Yeah, he's
Uh,
definitely hit or miss.
yeah, so it's like in those 1/3 of games, he's just awful to have in your team, and the other 2/3 of games, he's kind of strong. He's in a weird place. I agree with you that he didn't really necessarily need any of this, but it's fine. It's fine to give it to him.
I think the
The
durability changes were
Fun.
enough, honestly.
Yeah. The Maiden of the Mist chase range being reduced. What do you think of that? Is that just a nothing burger?
Uh, I don't think it's a nothing burger.
You think that that'll make it easier to kind of evade him once you've been hit by the Morning Mist?
Um, this is how close he has to be to the maiden to issue a command, or whether he releases it to push down a laning phase.
Oh, this isn't if you get hit by the Morning Mist, how far you have to be for the Maiden to chase you?
Well, the thing is, the maiden doesn't chase you. The Mistwalker she spawns chase you when you tag someone with that.
Well, those just jump right to you. Okay.
I mean, if it's listed under the Morning Mist, it must have something to do. But yeah, the maiden already attacks what York's attacking.
Okay, yeah, I'm looking here. The maiden gains 20% movement speed when moving towards nearby marked enemies. That's marked by the Morning Mist. Marked champions are also revealed. So that's 20% less from a slightly lower range. Yeah, that's probably a nothing burger.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, buff to York.
she's already really close to York all the time anyway. So,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yumi.
she can walk through the wall too. So people didn't know that. Okay, next up is Yumi, and kind of similar to Janna. Now, this champion, I think there was a time where this champ was pretty strong and pretty annoying and uninteractive. But man, boy, has she gotten the fucking like nerf hammer like 50 million times. I'm actually kind of I feel bad for her now. 'Cause now I think they've gone too far.
I feel bad for that cat.
And with the ass backwards way her zoomies works in terms of like the mana cost,
Mm-hmm.
it just really just cuts down on her like effectiveness. That she has to jump in and out like a million times to make use of her thing. Yeah, it's just like as long as her little anchor thing gives like bonus stats, it'll still be good. But I think she's starting to get to that territory of a little too many nerfs here.
So just to reset this, and I believe they've made basically this exact change twice before, in the same direction. Obviously, the numbers were higher and lower in the past, but I think this is kind of like the third follow-up to the changes they've made in the past, where Bop and Block, or passive, where she comes out and then can give her ally a shield once she gets back, if she auto attacks someone, I believe it is increased. And then the zoomies, which is just the easy press E and heal someone, the heal is reduced and the base movement speed is reduced. I love this direction. I'm looking forward to the day where zoomies does like 20, and I'm not even joking, like 20 base healing at level 1, maybe like 50 at level 5. I'm talking like Tarek numbers.
Well, it
And the Bop and Block
better give
is
more
actually
attack
like,
speed.
yeah.
If
Um,
they're gonna nerf it
and
that
the
much, it better give more movement speed and attack speed.
Well, that would be fine, but I would want the shield from the Bop and Block to actually be like the biggest part of her kit. I think the coolest part is how she's this very squishy champion, has to get off of her ally to work with that shielding. And honestly, she doesn't have to do that enough, nor for long enough to actually catch out and kill most of the time when she's trying to do that. That's why
Yeah,
you often have Yumis, even in losing games, that have ridiculous KDAs. I like this direction. I hope they take it to the extreme, and that 3 or 4 seasons from now, we're looking at base shields that are 200 points higher and zoomies that are 60% lower. That's what I'm hoping.
I'd be fine if they went in that direction. If her bop and block uh, had a much lower cooldown, and they got rid of the goofy
Yeah.
max mana cost on her Yumi's thing. If they really want to force these Yumi players to be way more mechanical and be
Hmm.
less AFK, I would be fine with that. But
Yeah, at that
I
point,
definitely want her to have more power somewhere if her Zoomies doesn't do much healing at all.
I'm sure you remember there was the time when Herzumi's had the
Hmm.
non-percentage mana cost. I think it was just a straight 50 or 70 or something like that.
I think it was always like 100 and something.
No, they increased it a lot after she came out.
I remember at one point her heal I gave like it was based on your missing health too.
Yep, yep. I'm gonna see if I can, as we're moving on to the next champion, just look at what the old Yumi looked like. It looks like they did not show the mana cost on the site I'm looking at.
Well, the heal was definitely better. I know that much.
Yeah. Anyhow, I've really liked the direction that they've brought her, and as long as we never go back to that old terror of like Yumi Garen in pro play, I'm happy.
Alright, let's move on to Zeri, who got a lot of changes in the last patch or two. Apparently, they thought her W was too strong, even though I think it's actually one of the most unimpactful abilities in the game, to be honest. Kind of feels like it could be like Jinx's W, but it's definitely not. Yeah.
Yeah, the Ultra Shock Laser is the one that can go through the wall, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That one can take you by surprise if she gets fed in late game. Particularly if she's kind of good at aiming it where you don't expect it through a wall. I don't know. I might agree with you. It's the least impactful, but it's definitely an impactful ability. Um, so they are increasing her base damage and her health regen growth, but lowering the AD and AP ratios by a little bit. This is a nerf, right?
Yeah. You can get way
Yeah, they
more
gave her
total
some
attack damage over the course of the game than that base buff is.
for sure than the 10 point hit. That's true. So yeah, they gave her a lot of buffs in that last patch, and I think toning it down a little bit is fine.
Okay, time to move on to the items. And apparently, we're going to skip. Well, we'll talk about Night Harvester first, and by that I mean I have nothing to say about it because they just arbitrarily wanted to move some things around just for shits and giggles. So let's move on to that Serpent's Fang bug.
Well, the Night Harvester, the Fiendish Codex, I just wanted to say, is a much more comfortable build path than the Blasting Wand. Gives you pretty much the same amount of AP plus the 10% CDR. I always feel a lot better about sitting on that. I think anytime you see, and plus, it can build out of an Amp Tome. So if you go back to base with an Amp Tome already, and you have like 500 gold, now you can either upgrade it to the Fiendish Codex, or build another Amp Tome, and save the Codex for later. You know, if you care about the AP more than the cooldown, it's just a much more comfortable build path. I'm actually wondering if maybe at some point they're going to take the Blasting Wand out of the game entirely, and just have things build either from a rod, or 2 or 3 Amp Tomes, or the Fiendish Codex.
I don't think you got your face up Riot's ass enough there, giving them too much credit, man. But yeah, you're definitely right about that item squish. They definitely remove like items that are on the low end, and then before all you know it, we're only gonna have needlessly large rods, and we're gonna get rid of the Blasting Wand and the Amp Tome. You're definitely right.
I don't think they're ever going to get rid of the Amp Tome.
If they get rid of the Blasting Wand, you should watch out for the pickaxe. It's up next
Yeah, you might be right about that.
because it holds the same spot as the Blasting Wand, basically.
Fiendish Codex just is a much more comfortable build path. A lot of people sometimes go back to base. They don't even know what they want to buy. If you're building an AP build, you can just stick that in and it'll work so well with anything. I like that they did that.
No,
And it's just going to be
you're
a lot
right.
more comfortable for people who want to build Harvester.
Yeah, he's
Serpent's
right.
Fang. Serpent's Fang, which has been almost irrelevant since the durability update, due to the fact that they have given the shield users nothing in compensation for the shields that they keep taking away from them. R.I.P. Janna, by the way. Um, Serpent's Fang has been useless in this accidentally bugged state where it was giving you a greater shield reduction against enemies that had heal shield power. So, for example, you were going against like a Janna or a Soraka that had 30% heal shield power. I think the effect of the Serpent's Fang's shield reduction in terms of the initial hit, when you hit them, this is how I understand the way they're wording this, would reduce shields by 30% more than it was supposed to. And it still sucked. And they're taking that away. Guys, there's very little reason to ever build Serpent's Fang in the state that the game is in now. What do you think, Chrissy?
I'll tell you what I think.
Tell me what you think.
I forget this item is even in the game sometimes, because I think if I could recall every like individual time, I could probably count on one hand the amount of times someone actually respected enough the fact that there were shields in the game to actually buy this item over like their mythic first or like ghost blade second or whatever the hell have you. I just think it's like it's an item that doesn't counter what it's supposed to do strong enough or just have good enough stats to not buy it over something else.
Yeah, I love the existence of this item as a way to say, I see you. I see you're trying to do a lot of shields, either protect yourself or protect an ally. And I'm going to use the Serpent's Fang to what it does is it essentially ignores part of the shield, allowing you to get through the enemy's base health without making the shield expire first. So I love its place in the game in terms of its concept. But its power level is so low right now that there is no reason to use it, and maybe that's why people are forgetting it.
You know
Or
what?
maybe, yeah.
You know what they need to do? Instead of putting this, or you know what? They could keep Serpent's Fang, but what they need to do is make a variant of this for tanks that's similar to Abyssal Mask, where the tank that's having this, he's just espousing some kind of dank, musty venom aura that has the same effect, but it's like an AoE instead of having to like put this on an AD assassin. Because then there would still be an item in the game that does the same thing, but then you wouldn't want to buy this piece of shit.
That's interesting. So, like, when you hit that, or not even when you hit them, it's not like a Thornmail effect, but when you get within a certain distance of them,
yeah, like Abyssal Mask,
your shields will just start to decay, for example.
Decay or just not be as potent, yeah.
That's an interesting idea. I like that a lot, to be honest. How about this for another idea, as long as we're just brainstorming here? How about make Grievous Wounds affect shields and heals?
I don't know if I like that. That would make Shen worse. I don't know if I like that.
Well, I mean, they could, you know, they could just give all the shielders in the game an extra 15% shielding to make up for it.
I don't know if I like it. I think I like that it only affects healing and regen and stuff.
The weird thing to me about Grievous is that healing, there's just really two different types of healing, right? There's like the in-combat spike healing, and then there's the sustain that you're just trying to heal up over time. Stuff like a KLW, for example, is something that you're often not going to use in combat. And the Grievous Wounds isn't going to affect those, but it will affect the most interesting and intense use of the heals, which is the in-combat heals, and then it wears off after a few seconds, and the sustain heals are not really affected that much by it. So I've always just been a little bit confused by that design on Grievous. I don't know if I have a particular point here, other than the fact that the in-combat spike heals feel to me the most like shields. And that's why I was thinking maybe they belong together, being affected by Grievous.
No, I wouldn't be surprised if they took your advice one day and just did that.
Honestly, though, I really, really like your idea of having some type of aura that would make shields decay.
Speaking of auras,
while enemies are in it.
Buff Frozen Heart, it sucks. No one use it. Make the cripple aura stronger. No one fucking buys that thing. Make it out of a ruby crystal so it has some health on it. No one wants to buy it. It has no health. Just like the problem with Thornmail all the time until they buff that.
It's really something you can only buy when you see four 5, at the very least 3 strong ADs on the other team.
Yeah, bigger cripple.
Yeah, no, maybe add some health to it.
Exactly, like Thornmail, which also didn't have health for like 50 years.
Absolutely. But whatever you do, don't buy Serpent's Fang now.
Okay,
Yeah,
now
there's no other items I wanted to talk about. Should we just hit that Predator?
coming in at record time here, our final change is Predator. And I feel like this has kind of been zoned out of the game, and it's even more niche on its even most niche users, like, I don't know, I guess Hecarim or Skarn or whatever. The thing is, with both of them, they'd rather take other shit now too, a lot of the time. So I don't know really what to make of this. This is actually, funny enough, my go-to rune for Vladimir, but that's only because of the way Vladimir like currently operates. You kind of go in there and just blow up, and you don't want to take Ghost because you still want to Ignite. Just
Yeah,
throwing that out there.
I've seen Vladimir use it. I've seen a lot of Vagars use this recently. Darius, Nasus. It's a lot of champs that I wouldn't expect, because I've always thought that Predator was meant to be a ganking junglers rune.
Well, it's kind of evolved in its neglect.
Yeah, and it almost seems with these changes, you see they're increasing the damage ratios, basically making it better in the late game, particularly for some of these scaling characters like Vhagar. And they're taking off they're taking off most of the movement speed. At level 18 you're getting more movement speed, but for most of the game when you're ganking you'll be getting a lot less. So again, I don't really know what to make of this. It almost seems like they're leaning into just making it more for laners, and that seems like a weird direction for Predator.
Hmm. When you start
I
seeing
think oh
something get changed too many times, that means they want to rework it.
yeah, that's usually what you see coming. And it's a shame because I think that Predator is necessary for some junglers to really be useful, especially some of those junglers they were trying to. Remember that one period they were just trying to work somebody from every role into the jungle meta. You know, they gave Garen bonus damage to monsters, Morgana,
Yeah,
uh,
brand.
Darius, Brand, yeah. Man, that was one and done. They
Yeah,
were trying to do.
I
They were like,
like
we're gonna follow this up with so many others,
I like
and they're like, nah,
Cancer.
that wasn't a good idea.
Yeah, that was real stupid.
But yeah, you know, champs like that really needed something like Predator to be even halfway relevant on being able to gank. And I don't know, like with this change to Predator, my prediction is you're gonna see actually a much smaller pool in the pro play and the high elo levels of junglers that are viable. I think it's going to thin the pool. I think some champions that didn't really need the Predator to gank will be just fine. I think that the champions that needed Predator are going to be in a lot of trouble. And
Well,
you're going to end up seeing Predator still used just on laners. I cut you off. Go ahead.
here's the thing. This
Mm-hmm.
ability, you never took it for the damage. The damage is shit. It's still shit. This isn't even a complete revert of all of the damage nerfs this has gotten. The damage
Right.
is always going to be shit. And the movement speed did take a big hit, but even if they made it only 25 and it never got any higher, 25 is still plenty to do some serious ganking. The only change of consequence is the cooldown and how you're going to be able to use it a lot less often in the early game. And Predator isn't very useful as the game goes on. It's really only useful the first 20 minutes of the game, basically.
Yeah, I don't know. When you just barely see someone coming, especially with the decreased vision in lane, sometimes that difference between 45% and 25% really is going to be whether they catch up to you or not.
Well, Ghost is like 21 or 24 or something.
Sure.
Ghost is pretty fast.
Yeah, but 45% is double Ghost.
Yeah, I feel like
And
the cooldown's the only thing that really matters.
yeah, I'm seeing the movement speed as a big nerf to this personally. For any jungler that needed this to gank. The cooldown, that will definitely hurt too. And it's weird to see. I would actually like to see them move it back to being more of a jungler spell. rather than something that just random laners are going to use to catch up to you when you don't expect them.
I think they should just make it like flat 75 seconds, like the whole game.
Yeah, that would be nice too.
Giving it a
And
higher cooldown on the early game is when it's supposed to be used the most, so that'll make sense.
I think they were just thinking it was too powerful in the early game, and I disagree with them, and I agree with you. I think
Well, they must be wrong.
75, 70, 75 all game would be pretty good. On the other hand, if you're that Darius or Veigar that was using this to catch up to people, like this is great for you. You'll be able to do even more of that in the late game when you're actually loading in the damage and killing people, and higher AD and AP ratios. So you're gonna love this.
All right.
I think that does it.
That does it for 12.12. You got any
Alright.
final remarks?
Final thoughts? I think mostly a lot of good changes in the right direction. Just a little here and a little there is going to get us to a more balanced place than we were 2 patches ago.
You know,
And
you're right. I didn't really see too much buffoonery, and there's usually always a couple good pieces of buffoonery in every patch.
in particular, I think a couple of those champs that were having a hard time getting over the burst thresholds, it's nice that they buffed those. And I'm looking forward to what we might see 3 or 4 patches down the line, where I think we might actually have a more balanced meta than we had back in 12.9. That's my final thought.
I think we're still going to see some more changes because of that durability update for sure.
Yeah, that's going to cascade for quite a long time.
Yep.
So if you have any ideas for what you think is coming down the line as a result of that 12.10 patch, we'd like to hear about it in the comments.
Hey, man. Those are my comments.
Those are... Chrissy will respond to every single one of them. He promises.
There's no peddling or begging for views and subscribers on this channel, man.
All right, then. Cut that shit out.
All right, we'll see you in a couple weeks for 12.13.
See you later, Chrissy.